Hey, what's going on, my guilty brethren, man? Today, man, I'm bringing you my 5 tips on how to get the perfect picture, man. Look, I almost mastered this camera, man. I did a shoot the other day, man. It was crazy, yo. It was crazy because I was producing, you know, some of the poses or some of the angles I was getting wasn't right. But as far as quality of the pictures, whoo! Gems. I'm gonna show you a couple of them. But yeah, 5 tips, man. The first tip is for you. You are the key to a great picture. Like they say, it's not the tools you have, it's the person behind them, or the person that's using them. And you are the key, man. Get creative. You know, take multiple shots so you can end up with that one grand one. Which I was doing. I took a bunch of shots. You know, I was like, had on continuous shot. But you know, out of 20, you know, I probably had 2 or 3. But you know, all that counts is that you got that one. You know, that one quality one that you could put into the files of the portfolio. You know, I got several, but I'm just saying, all that counts is the one the grand one that's gonna bring them back. But yeah, you be creative, man. Make sure you have it on continuous shots, so you won't take one picture or one pose and then, you know, you go back into the computer and you looking through the files and you like, oh, all the poses are doo-doo. Well, not doo-doo, but they just horrible. All the photos are horrible because I didn't take multiple shots. But yeah, that's tip 1. Tip 2 is your lighting. We were racing against time, man. And while we were racing against time because I think we went out about 6, and it's starting to get darker around 6. So we had some nice, you know, dusk light. But it was when the sun was beaming down on us at the 45 degree angle. The pictures were amazing. Even after the sun went down, I'm gonna tell you a trick to you know, to still get grand pictures after the sun goes down. But you know, they had a little cold look to them, like a lonely look. They weren't as warm as with the sun. You know, hint, you know, the sun, our heat source. But yeah, without the sun, they just looked cold and lonely, but they were still grand. The pictures, I'm gonna show you one of them. This one right here, this is without the sun. You see how like isolated it looks? It looked like she's in the middle of an abandoned city to me. That's the story this picture tells. But the lighting wasn't a factor because, and there wasn't any noise at all in these pictures. Even after the sun went down, and you know, it's ambient light everywhere, even after the sun goes behind the buildings. But ISO, I didn't mess with ISO. But first tip, you. Second tip, make sure your lighting is right. Don't race against time. Go out there early. Get the best sunlight you can. And if you want that dusk light or that dawn light, you know, go out extra early or go out there at 6 o'clock. You know, catch that light. But the third one is the white balance. Make sure your white balance is set to whatever you need to do, to whatever you need it at. Even if it's custom white balance, man. Do the custom white balance. Go in there, go into the settings, custom white balance, take a picture or something. Take a picture, they say take a picture of a white piece of paper. But if you don't have a white piece of paper, you know, take a picture of the ground, take a picture of a wall. You know, just to get your white balance set. Just make sure you got your white balance set. Or take all your pictures in RAW. And you can change the white balance later. Exposure later. You know, you could modify so many things with the RAW setting, which should have been number 3. But I'm going to make this number 4. As we get from white balance, we're going to go into RAW. Make sure you're photographing in RAW. If you don't have a big memory card, man, 8 gigs can take at least, I got an 8 gig memory card. I got several of them. But it can hold at least 600 RAW files. I'm shooting mine in small RAW, which isn't really small. They're about 10 to 15 megabytes per picture. But you know, just shooting RAW. Just shooting RAW, you can modify so much stuff later. Even if you didn't set your white balance right, you can set it later in Photoshop or whatever photograph editing software you use. But yeah, you You are the key. Creative freedom. Exercise it. Lighting. White balance. Shooting in RAW. And I got 2 more coming for you. The ISO. I want to tell you about the ISO. I was, you know, in internal conflict just now between what should I talk about first, ISO or shutter speed. The shutter speed can negate your having to up, if you're taking photographs, can negate having to up your ISO, you know, for these low light situations. The low light that picture that I showed you where it looked cold and, you know, I didn't have to up my ISO. What I did was I lowered my shutter speed. And what that allows you to do is, you know, if you're using a crop censored camera, before you touch that ISO, even indoors, unless you're shooting video, I don't believe shutter speed affects, you know, the light intake, but unless you're shooting video, modify the shutter speed first. It will work wonders for you. I had the shutter speed so high one time, the picture was just totally white. ISO 100, the picture was totally white. I'm like, whoa, this is bright. But before you touch the ISO, in any situation, unless you're shooting video, make sure you mess with the shutter speed. But a drawback to messing with the shutter speed is motion blur. I didn't have a tripod, but you can clearly see that there isn't any motion blur in that picture that I showed you, because I was real tight. I was like, bah, I was like a little statue with my camera when I was like, cause my arms, man, I was shooting video all day. I was recording on my project with my uncle. I was shooting video in the studio, man, and I was holding the camera, and my arm was like, it was almost falling. So I had to take the elbow in, and I would just get some real steady shots, even though my shutter speed was at like 1/30th. I think it was at 1/30th to allow all that ambient light that was behind the buildings into the sensor, so I can get a clean, noiseless shot that looks epic. I know it looks epic. You can't tell me it don't look epic. But yes, that one is, you please pay attention to your shutter speed before you even think about modifying your ISO, because sometimes it's not even called for. But the only drawback to modifying that is, you know, motion blur. Take a tripod with you. It won't hurt you. It might, unless you like, you know, frail than a mug. Unless you're frail as ever, got brittle bones, I wouldn't suggest it. But take a tripod with you, and just, if you're ever racing against the sunlight, tweak the shutter speed before you touch the ISO. And lastly is ISO. You know, if you gotta modify it, do it, but I don't suggest it. I suggest touching the shutter speed before you touch ISO. I'm not a big fan of messing with the high ISO just because of the noise. Even on the Mark II, only time I had a problem with noise was when I had it on auto. But on crop frame sensors, make that your last resort. Set the white balance, the shutter speed, make sure the lighting is right, and shooting RAW. You know, you can get a. I'm not saying shooting in RAW will create a masterpiece in post, but you know, if you stumbled a little bit, you can pick up the pieces a little bit if you shoot in RAW. But let me know what you all think, man. The pictures, I'm gonna have my Facebook. I don't know why I didn't put my Facebook, so you can see what I've been doing, man. This takeover has started, man. Flyers are really doing it for me. But I'm about to be posting work. You know, I'm gonna try to get some more models going on, set up some more shoots. But just let me know what you think of the pictures, you know, the advice. You might have some advice for me. But those were my 6 tips. It ain't 5 tips, it's 6 tips. I'm sorry about that. But hey, thank you all for watching. Subscribe, comment, tell your friends. If you're in Cincinnati, hit me up. I'll take your pictures for you for free right now since I'm building my portfolio. But hey, thank you all for watching, and have a happy YouTubing day. Take care.